All right, let's go ahead and get started. I wanted to go over just a couple of housekeeping items first. This presentation may contain some forward-looking statements that reflect the current beliefs of ServiceNow and are based on current information that's available. These are forward-looking statements and should not be relied upon for making purchasing decisions. Today's session is part of the Live on ServiceNow, a curated event series to connect you with ServiceNow experts and peers that can help you deploy your products and achieve value faster. We hope you can join us again at other webinars or 360 exchanges. You can see the schedule by scanning the QR code or using the link in the chat. Before we begin, a few quick notes. We'd love to encourage you to ask questions. We'll reserve some time at the end of the presentation for Q&A, but please use the Q&A feature within the Zoom to ask any questions throughout the session, and I'll be monitoring that. This session is being recorded and will be shared on the community afterwards, the ServiceNow community afterwards. Feel free to head over to the Impact Product Hub on Community at any time to engage with experts, ask questions, and see the latest innovation and look for other upcoming events. Lastly, look out for the survey following the session. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Now let me introduce myself and the other presenters you'll hear from today. My name is Dave Christensen, and I am a Principal Success Architect within our Impact BU. Also, we have Hugo Nolo from our Outbound Product Management team. And then last but not least, joining us from Dell Technologies, we have John Sheridan, Senior Director of Enterprise Service Management. I have had the opportunity to work very closely with John and his team for over 4 years now, and I'm super excited for you all to hear the journey that we have taken with the Dell team in that time. I couldn't be prouder of the so many accomplishments that we have made in our partnership to drive Dell's strategy. Dell, and specifically John, have been absolutely fantastic to work with. Now, I'm going to pass the mic over to Hugo to walk through a poll question, do a bit of an overview of Impact, and give you a product tour. Nolo, over to you.
Thanks, Dave. And hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. So we're going to kick things off with a little poll. So we wanted to ask you, how do you track today the value that you're receiving from ServiceNow? So do you use formal metrics and dashboards? Is it more of a gut feeling? Do you create your own manual reports? Or do you not really have a strong mechanism in place? And as I'm seeing the results come in, it seems like a lot of people on this call actually don't have a real formal mechanism for tracking the value you're receiving from ServiceNow. Quite a few also use formal metrics and dashboards, which is great. And I'm just going to wait a couple more seconds, and I'm going to close the poll. All right. Cool. So in terms of results, it seems that more than half of you actually don't have a formal tracking mechanism for evaluating the value that you're receiving from ServiceNow. And this is actually a great transition to my product overview of ServiceNow Impact. And I'd like to kick off by talking a little bit about history. So why did we launch this product? And it all started about 3 years ago. We interviewed hundreds of customers to understand how they were receiving value from ServiceNow and how they were tracking this. And what we realized during this research is that although a lot of our customers were embracing a very ambitious vision for ServiceNow, they understood the power of the platform. A lot of them had a hard time actually tracking the value they were receiving from ServiceNow, or actually just getting to value. And we came up with a term called the value gap, which is basically the difference between a customer's expectations for ServiceNow and the business outcomes they actually see. And there are different drivers of this value gap. things like a lack of expertise, right? Like it's tough to find good ServiceNow talent. Also a lack of personalized guidance. A lot of our customers thought that the ServiceNow resources and content were a little bit too generic. And finally, a lot of our customers also struggle with technical debt, right, which prevents you from upgrading and releasing new innovation to your users. And this is why we decided to launch ServiceNow Impact. This is a product that went live almost 2 years ago. We'll be celebrating 2 years in January. We have about 1,600 paid customers today, so a very fast-growing product, and have been receiving really good feedback so far. And at a very high level, ServiceNow Impact is what we call a value acceleration solution. What we hope to do with Impact is, one, make sure that you're adopting your ServiceNow products, that you're able to track how you're using them. Two, we want to make sure that we're able to keep your environment healthy. And three, we want to make sure that you have access to the right expertise. And I'm going to be showing you all of this in a demo. I'm going to be leading my demo from the point of view of a platform owner, or Jackie Gutierrez here. So when Jackie logs into Impact every morning, this is the first thing she says. This is her Impact homepage. Here she can track all the activities that she's working on, like her big strategic initiatives. She can track what we call her value journey, which are basically her strategic business objectives for ServiceNow. She tracks how she's using different Impact features and training. And she also sees recommendations for her based on her role as a platform owner, but also for her company based on the products that her company owns, their level of maturity, their objectives, etc. She can also easily track her platform health, and she can initiate a conversation with her Impact Squad. The Impact Squad is Jackie's designated team of ServiceNow experts. It's the group of people that will guide her throughout her ServiceNow journey. The customer success manager is her main point of contact, is the person who will help keep Jackie on track, who will share relevant resources and put her in touch with the right people. The success architect is her strategic advisor. It's the person that will help her define her strategic objectives for ServiceNow, how she can use the right products to get to value. And the platform architect is her technical guru. It's the most knowledgeable person on the ServiceNow platform. And her support account manager, or SAM, is the person who will take care of her support tickets every day and keep her platform healthy. So really, this homepage here is a summary of everything else that Impact can do. But I want to go into a little bit more detail on some of this. And when customers first onboard with Impact, they start with what we call the value journey. And the first step in the value journey is the value blueprint. This is an exercise that Jackie does with her success architects. And during this exercise, she basically defines her strategic business objectives, which you see here on the left side of the page, tied to the products that she purchased. And then we tie everything to clear operational outcomes and success metrics. And this value blueprint will guide Jackie throughout her entire ServiceNow journey. Once we've had this business discussion, we then move on to what we call the capabilities map. This is Jackie's single pane of glass into everything that her company owns. So she can see all the products that they're entitled to with a status, so she knows clearly whether those products have been implemented, whether they're currently being used, etc. She can also click into each cell to learn more. And then we also go one step further with the product adoption roadmap. And here we take the same capabilities as we saw in the capabilities map, and we sequence them into a recommended implementation plan that will get Jackie to value as quickly as possible. And the colors you see here are the business objectives that were defined during the value blueprint. So once we've had a business discussion with the value blueprint, we've defined what Jackie owns and in which order she should implement those capabilities. this is where the Impact AI recommendation engine kicks in. Based on this business and technical data, we come up with recommendations for actions, new products, training, you name it, all recommendations that will get Jackie to value as quickly as possible. I know that value is defined in a different way by every company. What we mean by value with Impact is getting Jackie to improve the success metrics that matter to a company. And she's able to track this here in the business KPI section. We call this outcomes performance. And so for the business objectives and operational outcomes that were defined in the value blueprint, we're able to track the improvements that she's making every quarter. So for each of these, we can see how she's performing every quarter. And then if we're able to define the revenue and cost drivers behind each of these metrics, then we're able to calculate a clear ROI that Jackie is getting on her ServiceNow investments. And these reports are customizable by point in time, by product, by business objective. And so here you can see that these were the targets that she defined in terms of monetary value. And here is what she achieved in the past year. But none of these results are achievable unless Jackie maintains a healthy platform. And therefore, Impact has a whole set of platform health features. The first one is Health Scan. Imagine some of you are already familiar with this product here. But what we do with Health Scan is that we divide Jackie's platform into 5 different scores, the ones you see here. And then we track how she's doing on each of these. And we also have clear recommendations on how she could improve those scores. We also show her how she's performing over time. And most importantly, how she's comparing to peers in her industry. Impact customers also get access to a tool called Instance Observer. It's a self-service alerting tool that allows Jackie to set up custom alerts related to her platform. So if a job is slowing down her platform, she would get a real-time notification letting her know about this anomaly, but also with AI-generated recommendations on how she could remedy that issue. And this is a really popular feature among our customers. And finally, Jackie can also track all of her Now support cases. She can make sure that ServiceNow is adhering to the SLAs that we agreed to. She can see how her support cases are trending over time and easily click into any of them. If Jackie wants to learn more about Impact features, she can go in the Impact Benefits page, which shows her a deep dive into everything that Impact has to offer. I talked about the value journey, business KPIs, and platform health. But I also want to talk about the experts that Jackie has access to. I already talked about the Impact Squad, which is her designated team of ServiceNow experts. But Jackie also gets access to additional experts on demand based on her needs. She does this through what we call Impact Accelerators. These are basically short-term services engagements on a very specific topic. It's a tried and proven recipe for success. And there are different types of accelerators. Some of them are technical in nature, others are more strategic. A typical accelerator would be one like, we have quite a few accelerators. We have more than 30 today. We add anything between 5 and 10 every quarter. But a very popular one would be, let's take this one, Jumpstart Your AI Search. So a typical accelerator, what we will do is we clone Jackie's instance, and then we show her how to implement this product in her environment. So it's very realistic. It's her own data. And then we put Jackie in touch with a ServiceNow expert who will share best practices with her. And finally, Jackie also gets access to advisory sessions, which are a little bit different than accelerators. They're basically half-day workshops with a ServiceNow product expert on a topic of her choice. So to make things very concrete, if Jackie wants to implement AI search, she would likely use the accelerator. On the other hand, if she wants to learn about our AI roadmap, then she could use an advisory session and therefore talk with a product expert. And to conclude my product overview, one of the big objectives of Impact is to make sure that Jackie is able to adopt her ServiceNow capabilities. But we also want to make sure that she fully leverages all the features that Impact has to offer. And this is what the consumption report does. So here you can see how she's using advisory sessions, accelerators, all her strategic initiatives, how she's using Instance Observer, developer support, also training, because Impact customers do get access to a lot of free training and learning credits. So this concludes my product overview. I saw there's quite a lot of comments in the chat, so I'll make sure to get to these if there are any questions. Otherwise, feel free to pop them in the chat. But hopefully this showed you what Impact is able to do for you. To sum up, it's a value acceleration solution. The main objectives are making sure that you get to value with ServiceNow, meaning that you adopt your ServiceNow products, you keep them healthy, and you get access to the expertise that you need. All right, Dave, passing it off to you.
Yeah, thanks, Hugo. And now before I hand it over to John, I wanted to share a bit of a teaser on what you'll hear from him today. Dell, like many of you, are facing every day the need to grow and scale your business. In a very close partnership with the ServiceNow Impact team and the Dell team, we've aligned to their priorities that are most meaningful to reach those goals head on. And in turn, we've seen some amazing results, which you're about to hear. And I truly do not want to steal any of the amazing thunder that John will now share with you. So with that, why don't I turn it over to you, John, and you can tell everyone here why Dell says yes to realizing value faster with Impact.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dave. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Hugo. It was a great intro. So we'll talk a little bit about kind of a good agenda that we'll go through, and it's similar to a presentation that we had done at Knowledge earlier this year, but really starting with what can you expect? What are the takeaways from this session? And like many companies, we realized we were experiencing a value gap. And the way we look at value gap is the number of capabilities that we have on the platform with ServiceNow and how long it takes to implement that to get value from it. So, if you're on platform, you purchase a capability like ITSM or some of the other larger workflows, there's an awful lot underneath that. Looking at how to leverage that, how to implement quickly and be able to move through those things to be able to get them into production and leverage those is really what we looked at as an opportunity that or an area where we could really improve. It's really challenging. Value gaps are created for various reasons: competing priorities, finite capacity, decentralized governance, all different things. But we really believe that Impact was a key component to helping us narrow that value gap and really accelerate our value realization. And since then, we've been right. So Impact has helped us work across our teams within Dell as an extension of our team. It brings information back to us via governance that my team wouldn't necessarily have the breadth or the capacity to go out and gain. And the digital experience that Hugo previewed, and I'll show you a real practitioner view of how we're utilizing that today later in the presentation, helps us keep visibility and focus on what's really important to us. So what is our strategy and what is it with ServiceNow, and where do we have our Impact Squad focused to support that strategy? And we can draw lines directly to those things in the Impact digital experience. Dave, if you want to go to the next slide. I mentioned our agenda, so a couple of things we'll talk about. I'll just give you a brief overview of our Dell ecosystem, so how we're leveraging ServiceNow and where it is deployed in the environment today. We'll talk about our Impact journey, and then we'll share some examples of how Dell acts with Impact. I'll share our governance model, which is something that Impact and our Impact Squad was very critical in helping us define and build, really enabling our center of excellence for Impact, the outcomes we've realized, and then a few lessons learned. So when you think about our ecosystem within Dell, we have 6 production environments today. Dell Digital, which is providing the backbone of the support organization, everything we do from digital operations. Essentially, when I say Dell Digital, that's our IT organization internally, supporting everything the organization needs to be able to do what it does. We have other environments that supports labs and infrastructure. We have our Dell environment, which I'll touch on in a minute, which is an internal shared business service environment. Next-gen cloud services, ProManage, those are both customer-facing offerings that are supported by environments of ServiceNow that actually extend Dell capabilities out to our customers and end users. And then we have data center services as well. From a company perspective, we have about 120,000 team members. We have over 1 million portal visits per month on our portal that is powered by ServiceNow. So our internal portal is called MyIT. We're getting about 1.3 million visits per month there, which is a big factor in things that we're able to provide from ServiceNow, like our virtual agent. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a future slide as well. Our virtual agent is seeing over 40,000 conversations per month, and it's yielding an excellent success rate. And there's a lot of reasons why that's really important to us. And we have over 10 million configuration items in our CMDB. When you think about configuration items, that's any device, any CI that's in the CMDB for those that are involved with CMDB. From a primary CI perspective, which means something that's able to be linked to an incident change or any other ITSM record, we're around 400,000. So just a little sense of our size, scope, breadth, and sort of the Dell ServiceNow ecosystem. Dave mentioned in the beginning, we've been working together for quite a while. We actually started as a customer success customer back in 2019, 2020. And we started that engagement as a pilot. So what we wanted to do was sort of dip our toes in the water, figure out, what is customer success all about and what can we gain from it and how can it help us accelerate? So since starting there, we really focused on our Dell digital environment, and that's where the primary time was spent by our architects. We had 1 day per week with the success and platform architects, and we were really focused on single instance governance and extending and learning more about the IT capabilities that we could either leverage that we hadn't been leveraging or how to get better at what we had been implementing. In 2021, 2022, we had a growing need to accelerate our innovation. We were supporting digital transformation, the future of work, right? We'd just gone through pandemic and bringing everybody out of the office, in their homes, different ways of working. A lot of that was powered by workflows within ServiceNow. We needed to continue to accelerate that, so we extended the hours of our customer success journey, extended the number of days and hours that Dave and Dutch, our platform architect, were with us, and really set our sights on how to improve our platform health, how to accelerate our virtual agent agenda, and how to accelerate our technology journeys and set the foundation for those benefits for the years to come. With the success of that really became the launch of Total Impact. So we had a lot of success in working with Dave and Dutch, the access that we gained to ServiceNow expertise, the ability to get experts to come to us and help us understand how best to implement a virtual agent, which we had no experience with in the past. Those accelerating factors were really the catalyst to say, hey, this Total Impact program, we believe will actually accelerate and continue to drive our digital transformation powered by ServiceNow within the organization by bringing all of the features of Impact. So things like the digital experience, the accelerators, the advisory sessions, all those things that will help us continue to extend capabilities that we owned that we maybe weren't taking advantage of, or the capabilities that we had that we weren't taking full advantage of or realizing full value from. So that was the catalyst for Total Impact. And in 2022, we signed with Total and really extended governance across the organization, which was a big win, pulling all 6 of those environments and their environment owners together, moving together now in a coordinated way and understanding what our total environment health or platform health was like across all of those, and leveraging the digital experience to visualize and track all of those initiatives and programs at the same time. So it's been quite the journey so far. Definitely have work left to do, but we've made a significant stride in our utilization of the platform, as well as the speed with which we're able to move. So thinking about how we act with Impact, I'll share a couple of examples, a couple of real life examples from Dell around how the Impact Squad has helped us. So in this case, we're talking about platform health. When we first engaged with customer success, one of the areas we said we need to improve is our platform health. And you can get your platform health score at any time. Getting the underlying information and how to interpret that and where to focus and really be able to pull back actionable insights from that to pull those levers and drive increases in platform health is where success and impact both played a big role for us. So experts have helped us understand and interpret the findings. Our platform architect works with us on a weekly basis, runs a health scan on a monthly basis, and then we're recommending actions for the biggest gains. In doing so, we realized a 40% gain in the first year that we were with the program and really focused on our platform health, which is significant for a lot of reasons. I think Hugo touched on some of those earlier, but really simplifying our upgrade path. And part of the value of this and having a much cleaner environment and a much more performant environment is that we're now doing upgrades in less than 4 weeks, start to finish. So we're taking every family upgrade as it comes. We're executing in under 4 weeks. We're keeping our pipeline to production moving for all but the last sprint of that 4-week cycle. And we're upgrading and moving. So we're realizing gains from implementing resolutions to problems and realizing new functionality, new capabilities faster than we ever had been. The reason we can do that is because we've cleaned up our environments. We have a much better health posture, and we're also eliminating a lot of technical debt from the production environment. So our developers are spending time on feature development and less time on resolution of incidents and removal or remediation of that technical debt. Another supporting factor in platform health is, realizing that we can now see the signatures of these items that are picked up in health scans and having our Impact Squad help us interpret those. We take those signatures or those profiles and we embed them in a product that sits in our dev environment. And that product in our dev environment basically is something that developers run a scan on. It's called Bravium Best Practice Engine. Developers are able to run a scan before they move from dev to the test environment. And if any of those signatures are found, they're unable to move until that's resolved. So we're continuously burning down the number of findings in our health scans, which is another great kind of accelerator and value add along the way. Impact has helped us with all of that. Moving on to expanding into the business, I mentioned the Dell environment on the first slide that we looked at the landscape, our Dell landscape. Dell is kind of unique. It's something that we thought about for about a year, looked at the architecture and used advisory sessions in our Impact Squad to really help us put this into production and put it into practice. So what we were finding is that a lot of the business, the non-IT based business in Dell, would love to use ServiceNow capabilities, but doesn't necessarily want to be bound to things like moratoriums and all the rigor that goes into supporting a production environment that's needed to support things like major incident management, all of your configuration work, right? All of the moratoriums and outage times that come along with that. They want to be able to consume these capabilities, but they want to be able to move a little bit faster with a little bit less rigor. Our answer to that was, let's create a shared service environment, which is why we call it XDEL or cross-Dell, and let's allow the business to consume that, but let's not duplicate things we already have. So for example, we have our My IT portal where everybody comes to learn, order, and get support. We don't want to create another portal. We don't want to create another place for customers to go. We want to integrate that front end with capabilities or needs that may exist on XDEL where a business is consuming that and has their own federated or distributed development capability so they can move and have some autonomy to be able to do what they need to do with the flexibility of knowing that the way it's architected, if they break something, they break themselves, they don't break the world. So that was important to us. And an area where Impact helped us really accelerate this was the architecture advisory sessions, establishing that, looking at the options for how we might execute on this, and then providing the insight to our developers and our environment team to be able to go in, create this environment, architect it with the domain separation necessary to be able to be successful in this, and create the rules to be able to keep the business units either separate or allow them to share information as needed. So it's been a significant win. It's been in production now for 8 months. We have our first tenants on boarding and are continuing to expand that in the coming year. Thinking about virtual agent. Virtual agent has been a big one for us as well. So virtual agent, we are about 2 years into our VA journey. We're seeing success rates right now, and we define VA success as a team member interacts with our virtual agent, completes the topic interaction, and does not transfer to a live agent, and does not provide negative satisfaction or DSAT. If those things happen, we consider that success. That means that right now we're taking a little over 20% of the volume off of our service desk for things like basic inquiries. How do I get Visio? How do I order this? How do I reset my password? And the service desk then is able to reappropriate their resources to work on things that actually require human interaction. So much tougher things like, hey, I blue screened 3 times last week. I have a BIOS issue, or my server time is not matching this, right? Things that require that interaction and real triage. So the desk is able to really focus on those value add activities, and we're taking the inquiries and some of the basic transactional activities off of them and automating that through our virtual agent. We're currently at 93% CSAT, and that's a transactional CSAT, which is really important to me. That means that we're measuring CSAT at the point of service. So a very basic survey. How did we do? How did this work for you? Did you have any issues? Provide feedback. We collect feedback at every opportunity we can, and we're really driving at that contact reduction. So, major components to this, reset password is always a big feature. Everybody's always looking for that. I bet you that most organizations here probably have a very high ticket rate around password resets or Windows passwords. My ticket status was one that surprised me. People want to know where their ticket's at. Where's my incident? How far along is it? Being able to automate the response to that and let them ask based on their name and not necessarily having to have the fully qualified ticket number is a huge value add to the team members. And then Global Protect or VPN, whichever VPN source you're using, along the lines of password reset. Often those interaction type transactions are very chatty in terms of incidents. How did the Impact Squad help us with this? So I mentioned earlier that we didn't know what we didn't know. We've never implemented a virtual agent before. So in the beginning, we worked with our squad. We ran some accelerators. We talked about how do we orchestrate this, right? And it was IT and HR coming in. So how do we have two NLUs that are able to be on the same platform and serve up different information without collisions? And we still have some work to do on the collision aspect. The NLU management is definitely something that we're still working on. In fact, we're in the middle of a accelerator right now called Tune Up Your VA, and working with ServiceNow to really understand how best to have those two NLUs interact while we look at the next iteration of that, which is pivoting towards Now Assist and the ability to lead with AI search as opposed to leading with a topic-driven VA. So a lot of work to do there. A lot of work's been done there, but the benefits of the yield have been excellent for the organization. Governance is sort of the next frontier. I mentioned that in the beginning too. When we pivoted to Total, we wanted to bring all of the instances across the organization together. And to do that, we needed to define a governance model that not only worked for everybody, but had some value and benefit to everybody as well. We didn't want to create toil. We don't want to create unnecessary meetings, but at the same time, we want to have visibility to what the other environments are doing. How current are they with their upgrade path? Where are they at with platform health? We've gamified some of those things. There's a little bit of fun banter that goes around whenever somebody's at platform health passes the other environment. So we worked to our Impact Squad. Dave and I worked together pretty closely with some other experts from ServiceNow and said, how can we create a governance model that brings those things together, is lightweight enough that it's not burdensome to the organization, but also adds the value of providing visibility across the org. And this is the model that really came out. So we are running today a governance board that meets weekly, only 30 minutes, very stand-up oriented, and an architecture board that meets bi-weekly. Architecture board made up of platform architects and really provides that technical alignment of what capability is being utilized. Is it utilized in some other instance? Could we benefit from that? Is there any cross-pollination opportunity? What are teams doing and what have they seen with this capability that we may or may not be using somewhere else? So a lot of that comes together in architecture. Governance is all about visibility to the sort of, think of that as a high-level grooming. Should we do this? How could we do this? Is it right for the product? Or are there new features coming out that we want to extend across the organization? Beneath that, those things and the outputs from those sort of feed into our distributed development philosophy that I mentioned. So we're extending distributed development capabilities to some business users that have the right level of training and the right skill set to be able to do that and the desire to do it. And our ServiceNow tech team, which is really providing the environments, the support, release and deployment capability, product support, and all of the other sustainability efforts that go into running our environment. So all of those things are all full circle when it comes to governance. All right, digital experience. So Hugo touched on this a little bit. And when we look at our digital experience, these are actually screenshots from our IDE, from our digital experience platform. So these are showing what we're doing, how we're doing it, and this is live data. So the first shot you have here is our value journey. It's our business value map, and it's where we've sat down with Dave and Dutch and our platform team, and we've talked about what is our strategy for this year, what initiatives support that strategy, and where can Impact help. And we go through our business value map and our value planning, and we align those things to individuals, to initiatives, to high-level strategic themes. And then as we go, if you want to move to the next slide, Dave, we think about initiatives that we're working on day in and day out. These initiatives can be tied directly to how they support those strategic opportunities or strategic goals that we have in place. and we can clearly see where we have our impact squad deployed, where our teams are working, and how that supports strategy. And if something's out there that's not necessarily supporting or directly linked to that, and it doesn't make sense, we'll pull back on it and make sure we refocus on what's important to our priorities and what's important to strategy. The third area is our consumption report. I think Hugo touched on this a little bit. So what are we consuming from a utilization perspective? What impact features? You can see the number of advisories out here and some of the numbers of other features like accelerators. All of those things are able to be visualized here. We have a lead who is really, I consider her our impact lead. She sort of manages the relationship between our impact squad, our digital experience, and is working on anytime we have an accelerator that's new or something that we want to take advantage of. She'll rationalize that through governance, work with the team, put it into IDE, make that request, and then work with Dave and team to facilitate that, schedule, and get it in place. And lastly, platform health, and this is another one that Hugo shared. So there is a lot of data in the platform health section. The digital experience really, in my view, has done something that we'd been doing with spreadsheets for a number of years, and I was happy to see it in the platform, and that is to be able to visualize by environment what your platform health is, the 5 dimensions that Hugo showed on his slide earlier, what your value is in each of those, and then within that, there are recommendations that are made by the engine in the background to say, hey, your highest value right now is to focus on this. Pull this out, fix this in your environment, and you'll gain X% in your platform health score, and here's the reason why that's a good thing. So it's been very impactful for us to be able to use that as our radar screen when we think about improving platform health to really drive some of those initiatives and be focused in the biggest, highest value areas. In the past, we were guessing. We didn't have that visibility or the skill set to be able to know that this thing is happening in 50 different ways across the environment versus looking at something that may only be a one-off. So from an outcomes perspective, right, how does all this come together? So we have done an awful lot in terms of, like Dave said, the value that we've driven over the past few years of our engagement, whether it's from success or from total impact. We've increased our platform health over 40%. We're driving that 20+% deflection in virtual agent. We've increased the number of business units that are consuming ServiceNow capabilities internally or that we're supporting by 4 times. And we've driven training and certification in the organization, largely through our partnership, but also through our distributed development extension, over 500%. So we've got a much deeper bench. And that's actually helped me in the form of being able to bring people into my organization that are aspiring developers that got involved with distributed development. We're able to consume some of the training credits that ServiceNow offers through Impact, which is what we use as one of the steps when we bring in or onboard new people. And bring in somebody that's skilled up already to my team that can hit the ground running, as opposed to bringing in somebody that we have to train that doesn't have the insight into why our environment performs the way it does or how Dell does what it does. Another important factor in this, and I believe that there's a webinar in January on this around they'll call it the economic impact of Impact, is that we're seeing a 20% acceleration right now from idea to implement. So that's a huge element. That's a huge accelerator for us. And from idea to implement means, hey, we'd like to implement IRM. Great. What does that mean, right? So how do we accelerate that? Well, right away, we get Dave and team involved. We bring Impact in. We look at what environment makes sense. What is the team trying to accomplish that wants to leverage IRM capabilities? And how do we accelerate that? And the evidence we're seeing is from our sprint velocity and duration from we want this to we're using this in production. That's where we see that 20% acceleration. That's narrowing the value gap, and that's getting that capability to the business faster. The other element that's really important is we're seeing a 15% gain in our development capacity. And I touched on this in platform health. When we think about the time developers spend remediating, working on incidents, not working on new feature set and feature development, we've been able to return 15% of their time to them to work now more on feature set development. So again, another accelerating factor. We're doing more new things and extending new capabilities as opposed to plugging holes in the dam and fixing things that either leak into production or occur in production. So massive acceleration and massive gains. Last but not least, some lessons learned. So leading with governance was one where, I say it's a lesson learned. It was really, we started this way and we're happy we did. So it's more of a proving ground of establishing the governance model and having that collective view of what's really important to the organization. What is the strategy from a ServiceNow or a platform perspective, and what are we going to do with that? So creating the governance model, having that in place, and being able to use that as your proving ground or your validation ground for whether or not it makes sense to tackle a certain initiative or to place your focus somewhere else. Defining what value means and how it will be communicated is important. Hugo showed a slide where that particular example was communicating in terms of dollars. Internally within Dell, unless I'm taking money out of the budget and providing hard savings, I communicate in terms of value to the organization, accelerators to the business, and driving digital transformation. So if you have a definition of what value means and you run through your value mapping with the Impact Squad, you're going to have a much tighter story and a much better view of what your metrics are to support that value when it comes time to go back to your leadership and say, here's what we did and here's why it's good. Establishing our demand and intake and rationalization process is important, kind of part of governance at the very front end, but as you start to expand and as the word about impact gets out and everybody starts to hear there's ServiceNow activity, everybody wants to do something. You can't always do everything that everybody wants to do, especially in a large organization. So rationalization of intake of demand and prioritization is really important, and clarity in prioritization. So how does this support or roll up to a corporate initiative or strategy? Obviously that will lead versus things that maybe are one-offs or not supporting quite the same breadth of strategy. Those are things that you backlog and tackle when you can. And then quickly aligning those organizational goals with initiatives. That's getting started, that's hitting the ground. One of the things we wanted to accelerate when we went to Total was we didn't want to have a whole crew of people sitting around talking about how we were going to do something. We wanted to make sure we had those people on the ground doing things, actually executing as we put all these processes in place.
Before we go, just a couple of quick things. Thanks very much for joining us today. We do host these webinars monthly, so be sure to check out the next one on January 31st to hear more about the total economic impact of ServiceNow Impact from Forrester, which John had a heavy part in helping putting that report together. Next, you can scan the QR codes to go to an Immerse Experience website to learn more about Impact. And then last, join the Impact community. Join us on the Impact community where you'll find today's recording as well as any upcoming events and ask questions within that community site. All right, well, thank you everybody for joining and look forward to seeing you all in one of the next upcoming webinars.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks everyone.